How's it going, everybody? My name is Lucky Buns, and in today's video we're going to be covering the best Pokemon to use your Elite TMs on in Pokemon GO Ultra League Edition. Unfortunately, the Great League video was a 10 out of 10 on the channel, but you guys did smash that like button and you got it past 300 likes, so as promised, I'm going to be making this video. Now, if you guys haven't watched my previous videos, I would encourage you to watch those ones first as they cover important fundamentals. They're going to be linked down below, but as always, if you guys have any additional questions after watching them, feel free to comment them here as well. Now, specifically, this video is just going to be focused on the featured Pokemon and their meta relevance in the Open Ultra League, but for those of you guys who have asked for me to do a Master League video, the first video that I posted going over the raid/gym meta also covers Master League Pokemon, so just watch that one. Now, before we go over the featured Pokemon, I'm going to be going over some quick fundamentals like we did in the previous video, but if you guys want to just skip ahead to the featured Pokemon, there's going to be timestamps linked down below. That being said though, let's go over a quick warning. So the meta changes every season in Pokemon Go, which is about every 3 months. Many of the Pokemon that I'm going to be covering in this video have remained in the meta, but they can also lose their relevance quite easily from a meta shakeup. We did recently get the announcement for the next season of move updates, so I kind of have a better idea in terms of what to expect going into the next season, so at least for the next 3 months, this list is pretty safe. But because this video is focused in 2024 and I want it to last a little bit longer in terms of relevancy for the foreseeable future, most of the Pokemon that I'm going to be going over have been factored in with that in mind. Like I mentioned in the Great League video, a good example of this is a Pokemon like Registeel, which is probably going to maintain its meta relevance for the foreseeable future. I would even say at least like the next 2 years out, so it's a very safe investment. It's also one of the tougher Pokemon to get good IVs on in both the Great League as well as the Ultra League because you have to trade with someone in order to get a good IV spread. This is because the floor IVs from raid battles is 10-10-10. Comparing that to what your ideal IV spread is if you trade with somebody with a lower friendship level, that is a pretty big game changer for PvP. Again, when it comes down to a Pokemon like Registeel, which is a legendary Pokemon, it's a pretty big investment. You're going to need to invest a lot of rare candy for the Registeel candy, and then, again, for the extra large candy, you're gonna have to do a decent amount of raids, not to mention, investing that Elite Charge TM, that's a pretty big deal right there. And on top of that, the secondary charge move unlock is going to be 100,000 Stardust and 100 Registeel candy. So again, it's a pretty heavy investment. I wouldn't recommend just investing into, just like a random IV spread for Registeel. That's something you really want to focus on getting good IVs first. And then if you actually manage to get a decent IV spread, then it makes sense to invest into it. Next up, let's go over PvP IVs. So basically you want to have low attack IVs and high defense and high stamina IVs. The main reason for this is because it allows you to level up your Pokemon the most before it hits the CP limit for Great League or Ultra League. Now there are going to be exceptions to this rule because their max CP doesn't actually reach that limit, in which case you just want to power up the best possible IVs, which would be 15, 15, 15, or a hundo. Now for Great League, you don't really run into this situation that often, but it happens a lot more frequently in Ultra League just due to the CP limit. So once again, if it wasn't already clear by now, I only recommend investing Elite TMs into Pokemon that have optimal IVs for PvP. Now one of the final things I want to go over, and something that we mentioned in the last video as well, is regarding December Community Day. So there's going to be many Pokemon mentioned in this video that have had a Calm Day exclusive moveset within the past 2 years. Every year during December, we get an event that features all the Calm Day Pokemon from that year, and in addition to that, you can also evolve and get the legacy movesets on the Calm Day Pokemon from the previous year. So if you guys end up catching any Pokemon that meet this criteria, it is better to hold on to them until this event so you guys can save more Elite TMs for other Pokemon. Now in terms of which kind of Pokemon are a little bit more rare to get as a legacy moveset, Pokemon that you get from raid battles like legendary Pokemon with signature movesets are a lot more worthy of an investment compared to a Calm Day exclusive moveset because of accessibility. And with that being said, guys, that's basically all the fundamentals I feel like I need to go over. As always, if you guys have any additional questions, let me know in the comment section down below, but now let's get into our featured Pokemon. So once again, just like the previous video, we're going to go in type order. So our first Pokemon that we're going to be going over is Talonflame. That's pretty much the same thing that we talked about in the previous video in the Great League format. Incinerate is going to be the legacy moveset. Now Talonflame is definitely an exception because I feel like most of the Pokemon that we're going to be going over in this video are going to require Elite Charge TMs, not Elite Fast TMs. So when it comes down to Pokemon that require Elite Fast TMs, it's a little bit more easier to kind of focus on which ones are worthy rather than the Elite Charge TMs because you have so many different options. But when it comes down to it, guys, Talonflame for Ultra League is honestly one of the best Pokemon, and like we talked about earlier on in this video with IVs, this is one of the exceptions to the IV rule. So Talonflame is a Pokemon that actually falls right below 2500 CP if you get the hundo. Unfortunately, during the Calm Day, I never got the hundo for Talonflame, but I did end up getting a 98% IV with 15 attack and 15 defense. This is basically a functional hundo, and there are going to be a lot of Pokemon that do fall under this category as well. So functional hundos are just as good as regular hundos, which means that it doesn't really matter that you don't have the hundo. Now, as far as the recommended movesets go, you guys could run Flame Charge plus Fly or Brave Bird. Brave Bird is a decent moveset to go with as well, it does have different functionality. Moving on though, let's talk about Charizard next. So Charizard actually has some pretty solid play for the Ultra League. Now if you guys want to run Fire Spin instead of Wing Attack, that is also a decent option to go with as well, as it does give you different types of coverage. Dragon Breath is pretty much the same thing, although that is also a legacy moveset, so between the two, or between the three really, like you have a lot of different options and it's totally up to you. But if if you decide to build one and you don't want to give it the Elite Fast TM for wing attack, Fire Spin is still a good option to go with, as it gives you some solid grass type coverage, and if you build the Shadow, you can also use that in the raid/gym meta because it's pretty powerful as a Shadow, and you're not like building it specifically for the raid/gym meta, you're getting dual functionality out of it. Totally up to you if you want to build it, but I do think it is worth the investment, even if you just want to go with Blast Burn by itself. The next Pokemon that we're going to be going over is going to be Ho-Oh with Incinerate plus Brave Bird and Sacred Fire. Now, like the Registeel example we used earlier on in the video, Ho-Oh is a legendary Pokemon, so in order to get optimal IVs, you have to trade it with somebody else. Now, Shadow Ho-Oh was featured in raids during the end of January this year, I believe, so maybe some of you guys were able to get some decent IV spreads, in which case, if you ended up getting something that was like 6, 15, 15, that's pretty damn good, and you don't even have to build the regular one because you already have an optimal IV spread to go with for Shadow Ho-Oh. And again, it does have some pretty decent relevance in the Ultra League meta. Rank 159 is not that bad. Now, Incineroar is the next Pokemon that we're going to be going over. This one is ranked 114 in the Open Ultra League meta. The exclusive moveset is going to be Blast Burn, so that is a Calm Day exclusive moveset. Now, I would not use an Elite Charge TM on this Pokemon because it just had a Calm Day this year, so you guys can just wait until December to actually get this one. And once again, just to kind of reiterate, you guys can definitely hunt down the IVs for these Pokemon, but you don't even have to build it unless you're ready to actually use it. The next two fire types we're going to go over are both Calm Day exclusive movesets, so let's go over Typhlosion next. And you know, with the recent meta update for the next season, it got access to Thunder Punch. Now, Thunder Punch on Typhlosion is a huge upgrade, and I'm so hyped about this one. Let me see if I have a Typhlosion here. I don't think I've built it. Actually, I have built one. Since the season hasn't gone live yet, I still have Solar Beam as the secondary charge move, but that's exactly the problem with Typhlosion, or at least it was the problem before. So Typhlosion kind of suffered from a bad move pool, at least a bad charge move pool, but getting access to Thunder Punch gave it way more coverage and it gave it a spammy moveset. So Typhlosion with Shadow Claw plus Blast Burn and now Thunder Punch is such a good Pokemon to go with in the Open Ultra League and probably even in the Open Great League as well. It's not something that I covered because we didn't actually have the new season updates in the Great League video, but something to consider for sure. Now, obviously you guys know Typhlosion is my channel mascot, so you know, just the fact that this Pokemon got more meta relevance in the Great League and the Open Ultra League, I'm super hyped about it. Now, the last Pokemon I want to go over for the fire type category is going to be Blaziken, and Blaziken, we talked about this Pokemon in the Great League video, but the difference for the Ultra League is that you don't actually want to have Blast Burn, you want to have Stone Edge. Now, Stone Edge was given to Blaziken right when it came out, like when Generation 3 debuted, but then it was quickly taken away, so this is a legacy moveset, not a Calm Day exclusive moveset. Now, when it comes down to Blaziken, it is a bit more on the glassy side. It's a little bit better in the Open Ultra League than it is in the Open Great League, but ultimately, you know, I think it's kind of cool to be running Stone Edge on it. If you got Stone Edge on it, that's kind of a cool flex. Fire types out of the way, let's go over our grass types next. We'll start off with all the ones that require Frenzy Plant since we spent so much time going over that in the previous video. So all the Pokemon that require Frenzy Plant are going to be Serperior, Venusaur, Chestnut, Decidueye, Meganium, and I think that's actually all of them. Since the debut of GBL, Venusaur has always been a solid pick to go with. Like, it goes in and out of the meta, but it always is somewhat relevant. Meganium is also one Pokemon that I feel does better in the Open Ultra League than it does in the Open Great League, so if you guys do actually have a good IV spread on your Meganium, whether that's in the Shadow form or the regular form, definitely a nice investment for sure. And it also has different coverage compared to Venusaur. Like, Venusaur would be running Frenzy Plant plus Sludge Bomb, Meganium will be running Frenzy Plant plus Earthquake. Continuing down the list though, we're not going to spend too much time on these other ones. Superior is ranked at number 70 right here. And then let's see what we have next up. We have Chestnut ranked at 118. After that, we have Decidueye. So Decidueye is like the least relevant one just due to its move pool. But again, like, you have some pretty good options right there. I feel like if I had to invest into any of them, Venusaur definitely gets a stamp of approval for sure, Meganium, and then probably Serperior, I would say, maybe even Chestnut as well, but definitely not Decidueye. Like, Decidueye doesn't really have the right move pool for the Open Ultra League. Let's spend some time talking about Roserade next. This one isn't as relevant, but I always like to include it. So it's ranked 174, but Weather Ball is such a spammy moveset. Now, one Pokemon that recently just had a Calm Day was Victory Bell. Let me see if I can find one. I've actually always wanted to build a Shadow Victory Belt for the Open Ultra League, and I haven't gotten the right IV spread yet, but hopefully guys, like, one day this will happen. Now, the recommended moveset is Magical Leaf, and I talked about this in the previous video. I typically like to run Razor Leaf instead because I like that fast damage, right? Or sorry, that heavy damage. So Razor Leaf is more of a heavy damage move, whereas Magical Leaf is a better energy generation move. I think we covered all the Calm Day exclusive movesets, so now let's go over the legendary Pokemon. So Virizion is the top pick here with a Double Kick plus a Leaf Blade and Sacred Sword. I have not built a Virizion for the Open Ultra League for the simple reason that I have not traded to get good IVs. Like, my IVs are obviously not optimal for PvP. Now, very similar to Registeel, this is one Pokemon that I do recommend for the foreseeable future. Like, I don't feel like Virizion is really going anywhere. Double Kick plus a Leaf Blade and Sacred Sword is an excellent moveset on it, and all you really have to do is just get the right IV spread for it. So if you can do that, then Sacred Sword is a no-brainer. Now we also have Tapu Bulu as well. Let me see if I can find this on here. So Tapu Bulu is a lot further down. Not something I really recommend, but again, like if you have the resources to go with on this one, it could be worth going for. It recently got access to Nature's Madness this past raid rotation, so this past season. Bullet Seed plus Grass Knot on Nature's Madness is what you want to have on it, and it's a great counter against Tapu Fini, so that's actually kind of cool. Now, similar to the Great League video, our biggest category is going to be Water-type Pokemon. We always have to spend so much time going over this. So let's go over all of the Calm Day exclusive Hydro Cannon movesets first. The top pick is for Alligator. Like, because it got access to Shadow Claw the previous season, like this was such a game changer for it. It's currently ranked as number 2 in the overall meta and the upcoming meta as well. Now, Empoleon is a Pokemon that I used like way before it got access to any of these updates. So I have one built right here, which has Waterfall plus Hydro Cannon and Drill Peck, and actually that's worth going over too. You don't have to run Steel Wing, you could also run Waterfall. Like, I feel like that's a pretty solid moveset to have on Empoleon. My Empoleon doesn't even have the optimal IVs. Like, I have gotten a better Empoleon that I do want to build for the Open Ultra League, but I almost never run Ultra League anymore, so I don't really feel like it's worth the Stardust at this point. But if I was running Open Ultra League, I would definitely build another Empoleon with better IVs. But this Empoleon right here got me through a lot of the earlier seasons in Pokemon Go. Next up, we got our Mudboy Swampert. This is like the most famous Pokemon to use in the Open Ultra League, and a pretty good one to use in the Open Great League as well. But Swampert has held through for pretty much the entirety of GBL. It's very similar to Venusaur. Like, Swampert is a Pokemon that, if you have the right IV spread on it, giving it Hydro Cannon is such a no-brainer, guys. Like, whether you have the Shadow, the regular, Hydro Cannon is a must on Swampert. Like, you really can't get the same results running Surf. Now, when it comes down to our other two Hydro Cannon variants, let me see what we have here. We have Blastoise and Greninja. So I have those two Pokemon on my list right here on Pokemon Go. Looks like Greninja comes up next, so let's take a look at this right now. Basically, you want to have Water Cannon. You want to have Water Shuriken plus Hydro Cannon and Night Slash for Greninja. It's ranked number 51, which is actually pretty solid for the Open Ultra League meta, so definitely a good option to go with. Like, I feel like a lot of the Water type options that we're going over right now, like, you could really go with any of them. Now, we also have Blastoise as well, which is not really a Pokemon that I do recommend building, for the main reason that if you wanted to build a Blastoise for the Open Ultra League, it would get to around level 48, so that's already a lot of extra large candy and a lot of Stardust, and you have so many other options before that for water types, so it doesn't really make sense to go with Blastoise unless you just love Blastoise that much. It is meta, but it's not that meta compared to your other options. That's kind of what I'm trying to say here. So Swampert, Feraligatr, Empoleon, even Greninja here is a better option to go with than Blastoise. So with the Hydro Cannon options out of the way, let's go over our other options here, and I think the first one is also a Calm Day exclusive moveset. Yeah, so that's going to be for Poliwrath with Counter plus Icy Wind and Scald. Let me see if I have a Poliwrath here. I do. So I have this Poliwrath with Counter. I haven't actually built it for the Open Ultra League yet, but I do have it, and maybe one day I will build it. To my knowledge, Poliwrath has stayed within the top of the meta for like the past 3 seasons, I want to say. Like, ever since it got access to Counter, it was a game changer for it. We have Gyarados with Aqua Tail next. Let me see if I can find this. It's probably a little bit down here. Yeah, so Gyarados right there, Shadow version, and then the regular version. So Gyarados is actually a great option to go with. You know, Dragon Breath or Waterfall are both moves that you can have on it. I do have it kind of built. Like, at least I have the secondary charge move unlocked. I never actually powered it up. But you can pretty much go with Dragon Breath, Waterfall. You ideally want to have Aqua Tail though and Crunch. That's pretty much required for Gyarados. Now again, like, it is ranked within the top 100. It's definitely a worthy investment in my opinion. Like, Gyarados is another Pokemon that I feel like has stayed within the meta for a long time. Like, it has gone in and out a little bit, but currently it is ranked within the top 100, so definitely a worthy investment. Now, Vaporeon was a Pokemon that I was going to go over in this video because it was ranked decently well with Scald, but because of the upcoming meta changes in the next season, Scald got nerfed. So unfortunately for Vaporeon, it isn't really that meta relevant to go with anymore, so we're just gonna skip this one. The next Pokemon that we are going to talk about though is going to be Lapras. Now Lapras does have a double legacy moveset, Ice Shard plus Ice Beam, and then you also want to have Surf on top of that as well. So this is a Pokemon that has maintained its meta relevance quite well in the Open Ultra League. It's definitely a recommended investment if you guys do have the right IV spread, but Lapras is a pretty uncommon Pokemon to see in the wild. I mean, like, seriously, if you have a good IV spread on Lapras, just know that is kind of rare. Now, Tapu Fini is going to be our last Pokemon that we go over with Nature's Madness. Again, a new addition to Tapu Fini and pretty much all the Tapus. Tapu Fini and Tapu Bulu are the only relevant ones to my knowledge. I don't believe any of the other Tapus are relevant, so 2 out of 4, which is still pretty good. Tapu Fini has also been relevant for quite some time too, even before I got access to Nature's Madness, so maybe some of you guys already have one built, in which case, all you have to do is just give it that Elite Charge Charge TM. Definitely worthy investment. Now that we've gotten through water types, let's go over our electric type option next. We only have one, that's going to be Zapdos, and you know, I would actually recommend building the Shadow version over the regular version. One, because it's a lot more accessible to get good IVs on, and two, because it's ranked better. And to be honest, if I didn't actually get the Zapdos from Giovanni, I might actually build this one for the Open Ultra League, but getting Zapdos below 1500 is kind of hard to do. And I think the only way to actually get one below 1500 is if you battled it through Giovanni. So what I have on screen right now is quite rare, and that's the only reason I'm not building this one, despite actually having good IVs for the Ultra League. Now this is one of the few Pokemon that is going to require an Elite Fast TM opposed to an Elite Charge TM, so keep that in mind. It's definitely one of the Pokemon I feel like is more on the worthy investment side though, because again, ranked number 33 in the overall meta. Now even though some Pokemon on this list do kind of function as well as a flying type attacker, our main flying type attacker is going to be Pidgeot. So once again, this is a Pokemon that doesn't hit the 2500 CP limit, but it gets pretty damn close. So ideally, you know, you do want to best buddy it if you can, and you want to have the hundo. When it comes down to Pidgeot, I feel like it's easily one of the best investments on this list by far. Like, not only is it within the top 10 for the Open Ultra League right now and the next season, you could also use it as a mega option, and it's a pretty good flying type attacker used as a mega. So, I mean, all around, Pidgeot by far, like, even though this Pokemon wasn't that relevant like 2 years ago, it is extremely useful. Arguably one of the best Pokemon to power up in the entire game. Now, I do want to mention though, Wing Attack is better for PvP, whereas Gust is better if you want to use it as a raid/gym attacker. It isn't like a huge difference though, so if you do want to just have Wing Attack on your Pidgeot because you do want to run it in the Open Ultra League, then that's totally fine. Like, it's not going to make a big difference compared to running Gust. Next up, let's go over our only Ghost type option, which is going to be Gengar in both its Shadow form as well as its regular form. So the exclusive moveset is going to be Shadow Punch, which was a Comday exclusive moveset. This is one of the best investments by far, guys. It has access to Sludge Bomb, Focus Blast, Dark Pulse, Psychic. There's so many different options to go with. I think the most that I've actually used Gengar though is with Focus Blast or Shadow Ball. Sometimes I've actually used it with Sludge Bomb, so I take that back. I've honestly used Gengar so often in the Open Ultra League, so it really does get a strong recommendation from me. Not to mention, this Pokemon specifically is the reason I got to Legend during Season 6. Next up, let's go over our only Dark type option for the Open Ultra League, and that is going to be Umbreon. So Umbreon is again very similar to like Pidgeot, where you have to have the hundo instead of the typical IV spread on it. Once again, the main reason for this is because it doesn't actually hit that 2500 CP limit. So this Shundo Umbreon right here, this thing is my pride and joy. Like, this used to be ranked a lot better, I'm not gonna lie. Whenever I do decide to run Ultra League though, it is definitely one of my top picks to go with because it's so freaking tanky. Like, Last Resort is going to be the recommended moveset to have. I think like Psychic was kind of interchangeable at a time, but ultimately Last Resort gives you the best coverage, and again, like Psychic, you kind of struggle against other Dark type Pokemon, so yeah, Last Resort for sure, definitely a must on Umbreon. Now in terms of Psychic type options, we have two Pokemon that aren't exactly the easiest to get, and they're going to be Cresselia and Armored Mewtwo. So let's go over Cresselia first with the exclusive moveset Grass Knot. Now this was a raid exclusive moveset, so if you didn't get it, you're gonna have to give it the Elite TM. And once again, I strongly recommend trading it with somebody else to get better IVs on it before you build it. Now we also have Armored Mewtwo, which was only released in Pokemon GO one time, I believe, so this Pokemon is extremely rare to get. As you guys can see on screen right now, my Armored Mewtwo is from 2019. That was 5 years ago. So, I mean, getting this Pokemon is very, very difficult. Not to mention getting it with the right IV spread, even more difficult. So, I mean, if you have this with the right IV spread, I wouldn't even hesitate to build it. Like, you need to give it Psy Strike, but understand, this thing is such a flex. Now, in terms of our Bug-type Pokemon, we have Genesect in a couple different variants, right? So, Genesect in its Chill form, Genesect in its Burn form, and then Genesect in its Douse form. Now, unlike a lot of the other Pokemon where I told you have to trade to get better IVs, Genesect cannot be traded because it is a mythical Pokemon. The best possible IV spread for Genesect in the Open Ultra League is going to be 10, 12, 12, and it gets to level 27. So, really not that much of an investment if I'm being honest here. Like, the biggest investment is probably that secondary charge move. Now, I do want to mention that you can Elite TM to get Technoblast, but it has to be the right version of Genesect. So, for example, if we take a look on screen right now, I can get Technoblast in its Fire-type version on this Genesect, but I can't get Technoblast in its Ice-type version. It is a pretty rare Pokemon to have, so ultimately, if you have the right IV spread like I mentioned earlier, 10, 12, 12 is the best possible IV spread for the Open Ultra League, then maybe it should be a consideration. Let's take a look at our fighting type Pokemon next. So we have a few options here, and again, like some of them are dual fighting type Pokemon, so we're going to talk about them later because their main typing is something else, like Cobalion for example, but the two that we're going to go over right now are going to be Machamp and Conkeldurr. So Machamp is a very interesting option here because typically Machamp doesn't require a legacy moveset. Like the one that I have built right now is Counter plus Rock Slide and Cross Chop, which is pretty optimal for Machamp. Like that's a good moveset to have. Personally speaking, I think Counter plus Rock Slide and Cross Chop gives it some pretty good coverage, but again, like PvPoke does recommend payback, so compared to the overall meta right now, that is the better option to go with. Now when it comes into Conkeldurr, this one is ranked a lot worse compared to Machamp. The ideal moveset is going to be Counter plus Dynamic Punch and Brutal Swing. Conkeldurr did have a Calm Day last year though, so if you are considering giving it Brutal Swing, I would just wait until this December. Now our next Pokemon is going to be a normal type Pokemon that is going to be Licky Licky, so you want to have Lick plus Body Slam and Shadow Ball. Pretty interesting coverage here for Licky Licky. I feel like it kind of functions the same as Snorlax, so if you don't have a Snorlax build, which again is kind of a common Pokemon to have, I'm not gonna lie, you could build a Licky Licky. This isn't necessarily something that I really recommend that much, but I have one built myself. And again, this Pokemon does not really have the optimal IV spread, so I don't know. I never really use it anymore. It kind of sucks, and even though it is a recommendation on this list, I can't really recommend it that much. I feel like if you end up getting a good IV spread on Lickitung, it is better built for the Great League rather than evolving it to Licky Licky and using it in the Ultra League. Now we don't have any Pokemon for the Rock type category, but we do have one for the Ground type category. That is going to be Landorus in its Therian form with Sandsear Storm. Once again, this is a Pokemon that you can totally build if you get the red IV spread for it, but not really something I'd recommend that much. Like, again, I'd recommend this more for the Raid/Gym meta rather than for the Open Ultra League meta. Next up, let's take a look at our Ice type category. So we do have a few options here compared to like our one-off options for some of the other typings. First option is going to be for Walrein in the Open Ultra League. So this is going to require a double legacy moveset, Powder Snow plus Icicle Spear. This actually still ranks fairly well in the Open Ultra League meta. Even though Icicle Spear got nerfed a few seasons ago, it's kind of cool to see that Walrein still holds up. For those of you guys who don't remember, Walrein is definitely one of the best Pokemon to build. Like, Powder Snow plus Icicle Spear is so spammy, and Earthquake gives it some great coverage. Now we also have Kurem, which is coming up. We are going to get a fusion form of this eventually, so I don't know how that's going to work. Regular Kurem with Dragon Breath plus Glaciate and Dragon Claw is ranked decently well in the Open Ultra League. I do have this 98% IV right here that I'm totally going to build when we do get the fusion forms. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about that. But that's probably far away from now because we're getting fusion forms for the Gen 7 Pokemon, not the Gen 5 Pokemon. Weird that they went out of order there, but I don't know, maybe next year for Univitor? We'll have to wait and see. We do have another legendary Pokemon coming up next. That's going to be Regice with the exclusive moveset Thunder. So this one is kind of weird because, like, I don't know, it's Regice, but yeah, it's ranked 100 and it's actually maintained its relevance quite well in the Open Ultra League. I've actually done analysis on this a few times. And then finally, our last Pokemon for the Ice type category is going to be Alolan Sandslash with the exclusive Calm Day moveset Shadow Claw. So Shadow Claw, very, very essential for this Pokemon. This is one Pokemon that is going to require the extra large candy. I don't know how much. Actually, it's like almost level 50 looking at the one I have on screen right now. So, I mean, it is a pretty big investment if you do want to go with Alolan Sandslash. We're about to cover some MVPs next, and that's going to be Registeel and Cobalion. So Cobalion and Registeel, guys, like, these are two of the best Pokemon you can give Elite TMs to in the game right now. Now, as you guys can see on screen, you probably don't want to do what I did. I actually got a lucky shiny Registeel and I built it for the Open Ultra League. I have used this Pokemon, but compared to an actually like good IV spread Registeel, this thing will get wrecked. So, I mean, I don't know, like, I'm happy with my investment, but, you know, I don't recommend doing what I did. I don't think it's worth it. I think you need to get a good IV spread for Registeel because the Stardust, the candy, and the extra large candy are too big of an investment, you know, in my opinion. Like, you won't be able to do that twice. You're probably only going to be able to do it once, and I'd recommend doing it right the first time because if I actually wanted to take PvP seriously and run Registeel, I could not use this version I have on screen right now. And basically the same thing can be said for Cobalion, although this is a little bit different. I don't feel like it's as resource intensive as Registeel. Like, again, like, Registeel gets up to like level 48, level 48.5, I believe. Cobalion, to be honest, is mostly a fighting type Pokemon, but does have a steel type category, so Double Kick plus Sacred Sword and Stone Edge is going to be the recommended moveset. Pretty interesting, and not to mention, like, it has potential for the future as well, because, like, Stone Edge, I don't know, like, that's a good moveset to have, but I feel like it could get better options in the future. Our next Pokemon that we're going to go over is going to be Togekiss and then Sylveon. So Togekiss has recommended to have Aura Spear. I'm actually a huge Togekiss fan, especially in the Open Ultra League, so I built a second Togekiss once I got better IVs on it, but for the longest time, I used one that did not have good IVs. Like, I'm pretty sure it was the IVs I got when I hatched one, so yeah, like, Togekiss, in my opinion, it used to be a lot better. It has gone down a lot in the overall meta, but it's still really, really good. Now, as far as the legacy moveset goes, like with Aura Spear, I feel like Flamethrower has the same coverage on it, but Aura Spear is recommended. It's kind of tough to say what I would recommend to do here. Like, I feel like you can get away with not giving it the Elite TM and just go with Flamethrower instead. Now, we also have Sylveon as well for the Open Ultra League meta. This one is ranked a little bit better than Togekiss, which is kind of interesting to me because Togekiss was ranked better than Sylveon for like the longest time, but as of right now, Sylveon is ranked a little bit better. And in terms of the legacy moveset, you want to have Psyshock on it. So I actually have a rank 1 Sylveon. Again, like getting the EV rank 1s is a lot easier than most Pokemon because they're so common during events, but it's pretty cool. Like I'm pretty happy to have this one. I don't use it that often, I'm not gonna lie. Like I always like using Togekiss more, but I think that just has more to do with the move pool. It's totally preference at the end of the day, but those are gonna be the top 2 fairy types to give Elite Charge TMs to. Now we don't have any dragon type Pokemon to go over, but we do have the bonus Pokemon, which is going to be Mew. We talked about this Pokemon in the last video as well, but I'll go over it again just in the Open Ultra League because it does have meta relevance. The optimal moveset to have is gonna be Shadow Claw plus Dragon Claw and Wild Charge. That being said though, because Mew has such a massive move pool, it may be worth considering just using Elite TM to get the moveset that you want because you're going to go through so many charge TMs trying to get the right moveset on it. Now for some players in game, they have more than one Mew because they paid for the event ticket during the Kanto tour, but for some players they only have one Mew. So you have to kind of decide what you want to use it for the most, like Great League or Ultra League. So if you have to pick between either Great League or Ultra League, in my opinion, I would actually just go with the Great League. That's just my opinion though. You guys could actually run in the Ultra League if you want to, totally up to you. With that being said, that basically covers everything I needed to go over in this video. As always, if you guys still want to check out some more content, watch these 2 videos right here. And before you go, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you all real soon in the next one.